Yunnan, a land of mountains and rivers, should be bursting with life in the rainy season. But this year the rain came with a taste for destruction. The sky looked ripped open, and the downpour never let up. Valleys lay under a heavy shroud of cloud and mist, thunder rolling like a death knell for what was coming. Wind funneled through the gorge with a clammy bite, the crop's leaves whipped like trembling flags. The rain fell in sheets, and the clouds sagged so low over the peaks you felt you could touch them, thick enough to wring out. In barely an hour, the field channels rose to waist deep. Rice-ons were driven flat into the mud, silent, spent. The weather station sounded the alarm at noon and raised it again by dusk, yet many clung to luck. "We've seen rain like this before," someone said. But this time the thunder bunched tighter, the cloud deck pressed heavier, and the rain pounded like a drumbeat that wouldn't quit, thudding on every heart. Before dark, the soil around the old camphor at the village gate loosened. Muddy water bubbled up with a raw, earthy stink. Dogs whimpered in the rain, hens soaked to the skin fussed in the coop, and kids pressed to the window watching the waterline climb notch by notch, while the adults paced inside, checking for leaks in the roof and bracing the door a little tighter. Every drop felt like it was adding to a disaster no one could control. In a matter of days, brooks swelled into rivers and rivers into roaring floods. The rush of water braided with the boom of collapsing slopes, a terrifying symphony. Now and then in the dead of night, a dull thud rolled out, a hillside giving way in the dark, followed by lightning that sketched the ridgeline in a flickering black stroke. Some groped around for valuables. More grabbed shovels and sandbags, trying to throw up a makeshift line of defense. But water is a clever beast. It slips past our work and finds the softest way through. The rivers that once quietly fed the land were unrecognizable. The current went wild, barreling through the ravines with rocks, silt, and snapped branches in its grip. Channels people had relied on turned into untamable beasts, howling as they chewed away the banks and took out bridges. Timbers, roof tiles, even hog pen rails spun on the surface, smashing together with a harsh clang, like some chilling code. Bridge after bridge, once the links between villages, went down in a heartbeat under the hammering flood. Debris was sucked under with a snapping shriek. The breaks felt like open wounds, severing the community from the world beyond. Signs at the approaches were shredded, letters smeared into mud. People stood at the torn edge, staring across at the familiar slope, the bamboo, the cooking smoke, everything wobbling behind a wall of whitewater, as if from another life. Old Zhao crouched by the levee, pointing at the little river that had seen him through spring planting and fall harvest. "It's never roared like this," he muttered. He remembered floods years ago, but the water then rose slow, with signs you could read. This time it was like a bowstring snapping, 1 second of losing control and it was disaster. Some tossed woven bamboo cages into the flow, hoping to slow or split it, but the flood didn't care. It shoved them off like toys and swept them into the brown surge. Deep in the mountains, villages tucked against hillsides lost their peace overnight. The torrent came carrying boulders and splintered wood, smashed through courtyard walls, and shoved houses aside, as if a giant hand were kneading the whole place to pieces. Wooden homes flipped like toys and sped downstream. Even brick and stone didn't hold, walls pancaked under the pressure. Furniture, daily things, heirlooms, gone under mud and water in a blink. Aji's family home had camphor beams and generations of add-ons. A wind chime from her grandmother hung under the eaves. On the third night of rain, it rang one last clean note and vanished into the black water. She didn't have time for another look, just grabbed her child and waded knee-deep toward higher ground. When she glanced back, the main doorway leaned, the ancestral tablet spun on the water, and all the memories, festivals, New Year's dinners, Qingming offerings, whirled off with the current. She fell to her knees on the slope, mud cold in her palms, tears hot on her face. "Stay alive first," an old man rasped beside her. "Things can be replaced. A life can't." People could only watch as homes built over decades disappeared. The pain of it tore at them beyond words. Someone dashed back when the water dipped to haul out a trunk, nearly went down in the backwash, and got yanked out by a neighbor. More gathered in a ring on a mid-slope clearing, calling roll, trading news. Each name answered felt like finding the end of a thread, trying to pull scattered lives back into a single grip. The flood didn't just swallow villages, it trapped outsiders too. Some had set out to hike the ridges and taken the views, only to have the storm cut off every exit in a few hours. Behind them, hills kept sloughing off. Ahead, the river raged. Scenery turned into a trap, the trip into a scramble to survive. Stranded on peaks and slopes, they waited for rescue, every second an ordeal, every minute staring down death. A team of 4 hid under a rock overhang, climbing ropes plastered to the stone. No cell signal. The food in their packs had turned gummy with water. Their leader, Ahang, spread a soggy map on his knees, marking high points still safe to stand on and a possible way out. Headlamps swept the opposite slope, catching a ribbon of mud snaking through the dark. "Don't sleep. Keep each other talking," he told them. "At first light, follow the ridge north, there's a bailout trail." The rain drowned out everything else. Only when thunder cracked did they all hold their breath at once, as if only their heartbeats and the beam of their lights were left. The road to rescue was nearly as dangerous as the flood itself. Collapsed stretches, slopes ready to slide, down trees across the way. After dark, the valley was black but for the flash of emergency lights. Sharp calls snapped over the radio, the sound of life. Crews waded through waist-deep water, inching along safety lines toward the stranded. They made bridges of their bodies, shouldering elders, lifting children high, risking a sudden sweep away at every step to pull people back from the edge. It was a fight with the river, and with the clock.
A young firefighter tucked a purple-lipped child inside his own raincoat. A splintered branch had sliced his hand. The blood washed away in the rain. He didn't look at the cut, only the safety line ahead. 3 more steps. Grab my shoulder. On the radio, another team lead rasped coordinates. Secondary slide signs below the fall. Everyone fall back 10 meters. Reset anchors. 10 minutes. A helicopter circled under the cloud ceiling, hunting for a gap to drop a sling. Rotor wash mixing wind and rain into needle stings on the skin. When the first person swung clear of the debris flow, everyone looked up, knowing the night had only begun. The damage didn't stop in the countryside. In town, streets lost all shape. Water covered the roads. Cars bobbed like empty shells. Shop signs sat half-drowned, and the city looked remade into a strange water world. Traffic froze. People were stuck at home. Some leaned from second-story windows calling for help. Emergency crews worked around the clock, clearing choked drains and pumping out hundreds of tons of sewage. Still no match for the rain. The whole town felt like a sinking ship, and everyone was reaching for something to keep them afloat. Power cut out at 2 a.m., the substation wall doubling as a makeshift levee. In the ER, lights ran on generators. Nurses sprinted the halls with flashlights. Gauze, iodine, saline, gone fast. Doctors worked at temporary cots, treating cuts and fractures with the bare essentials. A bus that plowed into standing water sat stuck at an intersection. The driver kept voices calm and moved people out the windows to the second floor of a nearby office building. Someone rigged the office water heater to a generator and handed steaming cups to shivering elders, then hung soaked carpets by the windows, trying to chase off the damp and the mildew. In Yunnan County, the blows hit hardest. Muddy water poured into homes, walls buckled and warped. Roads tore open. The ground itself lost its hold and could cave at any time. More than 1,000 residents had to evacuate. They shouldered bags, tugged children along, and hurried over slick, muddy lanes. Some couldn't get their livestock out. Some had to walk away from the only home they knew. Familiar walls and rooftops, and the lives inside them, were left to the rising water. County radio sputtered in and out through the rain, while volunteers knocked door to door with bullhorns. "Go, head for high ground," they shouted, voices going hoarse but never stopping. Tents rose on the school field, a low blue sea with a family in each one. Kids lined up their wet shoes. Elders sat on folding chairs murmuring their house numbers like a calming charm. Someone set up a small stove in a corner to simmer ginger tea, passing the steam to every shivering shoulder. Others quietly wrote down a contact name and blood type and tucked the paper by their hearts like a talisman. This disaster forced people to make real choices between life and death. Some cried out for the missing. Some clawed through mud for one last keepsake. Under the crush of the flood, those attachments felt small. The one thing left to do was survive. A teenage boy stood at the shelter gate, chest heaving. He had carried the old family dog up the hill. He was caked in mud, but his eyes were bright. "He's been with us 10 years, he said. "He's family." An old woman handed him a clean towel. "You and the dog, both hang in there." Others didn't get out in time. At first light, rescuers found two elders marooned on a windowsill, hands clasped tight. The clock inside had stopped at the storm's fiercest minute. Seeing the team, one of them whispered, "We've been waiting all night." The strongest rescuer's eyes went red as he lifted them down, like carrying his own kin. Top-level alerts went up fast. Pump trucks, rescue boats, and medical teams drove through the night. Shelters went up on high ground, tents rising one by one. People crowded together for blankets, rations, and water. Volunteers formed human chains on muddy slopes, lifting elders and children, passing soaked bags hand to hand. In the downpour, their silhouettes were the warmest kind of beacon. At the county command center, windowless, lights on all night. Maps covered a whole wall, red pins marking washouts, slides, and passable routes. "Protect the lifelines first," the lead kept saying. "Water, food, medicine. Comms, no breaks." Carrier techs hiked battery packs up to ridges to set temporary towers. Water crews sandbagged the plant intake against silt. Civil affairs tallied headcounts in shelters and logged shortages 3 times a day. The community kitchen opened its doors, and cooks stirred pot after pot of porridge. Every bowl handed over brought color back to a face. Receding water didn't mean the disaster was over. Silt smothered fields. Crops rotted where they stood, months of work gone overnight. Bridges were out, roads severed, power damaged. In the shelters, people stared up at a low gray sky, asking only, "When can we start to rebuild?" Health workers worried about what standing water would bring. Sprayer trucks rolled the streets with disinfectant, steering clear of the kids' makeshift soccer patch. A counseling tent went up by the field. Teachers coaxed children to draw the fear out of their dreams. On blue paper, a thick black waterline ran from edge to edge. The child colored it in harder and harder, until the crayon almost snapped. Missing person notices kept coming. Volunteers papered the boards with them. Photos curled in the rain, names blurred by the damp. Some wrote their phone numbers bigger and bigger, hoping someone far away might spot them. Others logged every delivery on their phones to keep the age straight. At night, the mountain wind cut colder outside the tents. Drips on the canvas kept up a sleepless rhythm. The night watch cinched their raincoats and swapped batteries in the radio's yellow glow. Every copy that felt like a torch passed through the dark. What came after was no easier than the storm itself. Clearing wrecked homes, turning the fields, rebuilding power and water, putting bridges back. Engineers walked the levees, checking weak spots, and drew up plans to reinforce the places hit hardest. Villagers sifted through debris while picturing the day life would feel normal again. Rebuilding isn't a job of days or months. It's a grind measured in years. Plans were redrawn again and again to add spillways and overflow channels. Winding lanes would be widened, with retaining walls and netting at the bad bends. Work for relief crews mustered at dawn, young folks with pry bars and shovels, elders handing out tea and rice balls. "Sink the pilings another meter," a text said, checking the high water mark. "Don't let them go so easy next time." AG agents brought seedlings and taught ways to revive silted soil. Start with fast, flood-tough crops, then step back into the old varieties. Generators lit the village office first, then the school and clinic. When the first street lamp flicked on at dusk, the kids clapped around the glow, and the adults stared at it quietly, like seeing stars again. For all its cruelty, the disaster threw a brighter light on people. Rescuers' hands were raw, but they kept lifting. Volunteers were soaked through, still sloshing back and forth. Neighbors leaned on each other and shouldered hope. The flood could wreck homes, but it couldn't wash away our grit. Aji hung the wind chime she pulled from the water at the tent flap. The clapper was chipped, but it still sang in a breeze. She passed her extra blanket to the young mom next door. Kids catch cold at night. She smiled. I'm grown. I can take it. Old Zhao split what honey he had left into small jars for the crews and the night shift volunteers. A little sweet puts strength in you, he said with a shy grin. The city high school opened its gym as a warehouse. Students labeled boxes and sorted supplies, pooled their pocket money into a small donation, and chalked on the board, "When you're back home, come visit our school." This was nature ringing an alarm. Rugged terrain and extreme weather are a reminder. Our defenses need to be better. Early warnings, floodworks, and real know-how will decide whether we can protect our homes next time. Mountain towns and villages must remember where the rivers used to run and respect the paths water borrows. Streets and neighborhoods should leave room for water to pass. In classrooms, drills can't be box checks. Kids should learn to read the sounds of a shifting slope and the sudden muddiness or backflow of a river, and every family should know the nearest high ground and rally point. We also have to balance growth with safety. Don't build on a mountain's sore spots, and don't choke the river at its throat. The floods in Yunnan cut into the land and into people like a sharp blade. They took crops, homes, and memories, leaving families uprooted and a heavy price behind. Yet they sparked something else: solidarity and resolve. The water will fall back. The earth will heal. Those standing on the ruins will stand again. They'll mark new rings on fresh walls and plant trees that throw the first patches of shade. A child will redraw that once terrifying black waterline as a pale green ribbon by the river, and right beside it, "Please don't be angry again." This isn't only a flood, it's a test of courage, conviction, and unity. In the days ahead, we have to carry the lessons with us and guard the place we call home with reverence and responsibility. When the rains return, may we hear not tearing and rage, but the tick of fields and the patter under eaves. When the wind runs the valleys again, may it carry grass and clean earth, and an answer about renewal that's calm and sure.
Thank you for watching. If you found this report helpful, please remember to like, comment, and subscribe. Don't forget to turn on the notification bell, so you won't miss future disaster updates. Some visuals in this program are for illustration only and not from the actual scene. We'll see you in the next episode. Stay tuned, and most importantly, stay safe.